Hello, Raphael. My question is about the concept of setting boundaries that is pretty common in self-development and self-healing circles. And on the other hand, it feels not so natural to me setting boundaries as we are moving into oneness. And I am experiencing something like that in some instances in my life. And generosity, on one hand, feels very natural, and that is very easy for me. But holding back something, it feels difficult. And on one hand, I understand that one has to set a balance, means there has to be a balance. But on the other hand, it feels a bit unnatural and difficult somehow. And how can we also open the channels for receiving as well? So, can you please elaborate on that?
Oh, well, there is no need to force a boundary, for a boundary is placed when one recognizes that it is needed. And so there is no need to force to be in receiving or force to have a boundary unless you are already recognizing that something within you is out of balance and it is requiring or inviting or needed at this time to contain your energy so that it is not affected and you are in balance, or to open up to the fact that you have a difficult time in receiving from others. And so there is no need to create a boundary if a boundary is not needed. And yet, the idea that having a boundary is somehow disconnected from the sense of unity is that unity occurs as you are complete in the wholeness of who you are. And so, in that wholeness, it may require for you to create an energetic boundary in order to create strength within your own energetic field so that you are able then to come into full union with yourself. And so, it always returns to coming into harmonization, whether we're speaking of war or we're speaking of boundaries or any of these things with oneself. And so, if you are already in complete balance with self, there is no need for artificial boundaries, for those boundaries are already seen, honored, and understood by those around you because you're balanced in that frequency. It is when one is already out of balance and they recognize the imbalance that they have to go through a shift or a change in their experience and may have to force themselves to have, as you are saying, strong boundaries, to put them in place that they are uncomfortable with to come back into balance. And so, as long as you're already feeling in alignment with balance, then the boundary is not needed. But sometimes you have to swing very far in the other direction in order to build up your energetic field and in order to go through a healing or a process or a learning or a transformation or an accumulation of energy or the receptivity of what needs to be received within your field, a growth process in which very strong boundaries are needed. And once you move into that state of wholeness, those boundaries simply on their own disappear if needed, or are so a part of the integral part of who you are and what you have created that they are become seamless, meaning everyone begins to recognize them, honor them. They don't even have to be put up because they become known. They are not a boundary that feels separate, but just an operating system that others appreciate and regard because that is so strongly there that they wouldn't think anything else other of the idea of crossing the boundary, where prior to that, they might easily go back and forth into your field, in and past your boundaries, because they have not been put yet in place. But once they are in place for a period of time, it is like a fence that is just known is there, and one does not even consider climbing over the fence or pushing it down. It is simply something that is accepted.